Good afternoon, guys, or good morning, depending where you are in the world. Um, yeah, just thought I'd come online and continue the conversation about some of my experiences I had when I came to Hungary and a little bit prior. I did an earlier video on my journey. So I thought I'd come up. Since then, I've come up with a lot of different other thoughts I can share. That there's so much information that I even thought, because I attended many lectures in the past, which were in Hungarian, it would be helpful for not only Hungarians who live overseas, who might be interested, like myself. I have a lot of relatives who have got Hungarian ancestry or roots, and they can't speak Hungarian like in Australia. So no doubt it'd be other parts, because after 1956, a lot of Hungarians during the uprising, the refugees went from all over the world to US, Canada, Argentina, South Africa. Um, yeah, they were the main places, I think. They're the main places, because a lot of them crossed the borders. You know, my dad went to Trieste, escaped from there, and my mother from Budapest to Vienna. But the first time she attempted the escape, their family got caught, and she had 3 years prison. You know, in one of the prisons. But actually, what I'll do a documentary, or I mean a video, a discussion about that soon too. As I mean, there's so much information I want to share, and because even that's really interesting, the journey, how they, both of them. I think I'll do two separate ones, one on mum and one on dad. His dad was like an Indiana Jones kind of guy. Some of the stories he used to tell us, and a lot of people backed it up too. Other relatives, you know, later when I met up with them. So I used to repeat them all the time. We went fishing, or help them working around the house, concreting, brick, doing all the chores around the house. So it was always good, because yeah, he was kind of inspiration, and good for character building. Um, yeah, and I find it really sad how a lot of single mothers and families are risen with divided, and there's no man in their life, and they get brought up just one-sided. I remember my parents had like the girls were mainly around mum, not really, only one of my sisters pretty much. Until later, she started hanging around boys more so. But in general, here was tradition. The girls were closer to the mother, and the boys closer to the father. Usually when they're younger, they were around the mother, but after around about, when they're able to be handle a few knocks and bruises, that's when they get close to their father. And it's just a natural tradition, family tradition. Well, most families back those days. These days, chaos. And I understand why a lot of kids are a bit loopy, and parents. Uh, it's interesting to be able to talk about, because it's good to see the progressive changes as the decades have progressed. Yeah, so a lot of times I ponder too much on it, because I like to go back into the old days and look forward to the future. It's very, very twisted, chaotic, no boundaries anymore. All been washed away. Before it used to be, not even, probably more so my grandparents' era. That's when there was still order. But since the rotten TV and films and music, from especially after the World War II, is when the main nail in the coffin was the final nail in the coffin for I think generations to come, because this soft communism or Marxism, which is in the world today, it's reared its ugly head now. Before they infiltrated a lot of Yeah, but in a way, or what I notice as well is, but even the conservative side is infiltrated and controlled. But not before was kind of, they still didn't have a full grasp of it, but now, forget it. A lot of the alt-right groups, alternative right, and this alternative history groups. I've been doing a lot of, that interests me as well. Mainly the English-speaking sites, because yeah, especially since the last couple of years with the elections around the world, are just absolutely nuts, absolutely nuts. So I've seen a lot of those alt-right groups are controlled opposition. So be careful, guys. Don't believe they're planted there to catch everyone. The left and right are just a load of shit. It's all smoke screens, smoke and mirrors. So don't don't get trapped. Don't get trapped. You can listen to it, but don't be cautious. Be very cautious to how you digest all that information. It's pretty confusing. And what I see a lot today too is a lot of video games, films. I can't even watch a film anymore. Halfway through, I just analyze it that deep, or what they're trying to brainwash and indoctrinate people with. People might assume, oh, it's not much, but it is. It's destructive. The way they have the really strong feminism in it, the racism. They make the man, the white people in it appear like the villains, the black people the heroes, and even replace historical figures that never existed before as black people. Like, they got their own culture. They've got a beautiful culture too. We don't. I don't know. I find it very, very, very disturbing and weird. If there was a historical figure who was like a Norseman, or we know historically who they are, what race they belong to, keep it that way. Why change it? That's how it was. Simple. But they're just confusing everything. Kind of confusing. And even I notice the rock music, they have this punk theme in it. And even during the 80s, 90s, they always had this kind of punk element, punk rock. And it's coming back again. And a lot of the video games, even I had a bit of fun a few weeks ago playing, they chuck a coin in it, and motorcycle racing, and you can pick the characters. And they're all punk. They've got mohawks and studded belts, all the tattoos, and all this rebel kind of. Remind me a little bit of who was that? Sex Pistols, kind of, probably. But he was a bit of a that guy. He was a bit of a sloppy looking dude. But these guys are trying to make him a little muscular, and they're the kind of, and the anarchy symbols and the fist symbol. If you ever see the fist symbol anywhere, guys, that stands for communism. And I started to see a lot of graffiti around Budapest. And even when I went to Barcelona around 8 or 10 years ago, anarchy symbols everywhere. So actually, that's where most of the anarchy started. So it's actually quite interesting knowing your damn history, guys. Learn it properly. Because if you don't know it, the people that are screwing around with us now are they're controlling us, because that's why they are really trying to get young people not to worry about the past, or make the history seem like a not that important. Just be in the present, in the now, and not worry about the past. But it's so important. You got to know your roots, because then you can't get fooled. You can't be controlled to a less degree, and then you can expose when there's indoctrination and this biased propaganda is spread. And it's there. It is seriously there in a lot of areas. As I said, even in, you go to have a game, in a lot of computer games, even when I was checking out Like I love strategic games years ago. I don't game anymore because I'd rather spend my time educating myself with non-fiction stuff because I find non-fiction far more fascinating than far more fascinating than fiction. You can find everything in there, like the metaphysical, the is there, especially if you delve into the you delve into the yeah, I find it really amazing with the Catholic teachings because it's not just about what's in the Bible. It's, there's a lot more stuff which is reinforces the Bible. Because the Bible is only what a section which is inspired. God's inspiration is put in that Bible, inspired by God. But there's a lot of other saints and prophets and um, people who are gifted who wrote extensively about other sections of how to understand metaphysics, spirituality, religion, your vice versus virtue, and their experiences. They're even reading about how saints, for example, some of our martyrs or saints, um, help you understand their own experience, and they're part of our family too because they were martyred. So and you see a lot of these Protestant movements, we're not allowed to talk about saints. It's taboo. But a lot of them were martyred. They were killed. They were quartered. They were hung. They were skinned. They were burned, hung upside down. You name it. They were sacrificed just like Jesus. And then a lot of people leave them out of the picture. And again, if you study history, you understand why they do it. And it's a nice little group of people that masquerade and are masters of deception. And yeah, so it's very interesting to study. And a lot of these films, these games, even music, they reflect a lot of little trigger words all the way through them, which slowly they kind of they get people to be subjective. In that respect, they get emotional when they hear certain parts of history, and they got a certain view on it, where triggers like a mental block, and even if they get angry or emotional, and this is a whole reasoning why the arts are very the arts are a very crucial area of our lives, which were another gift from God to help us kind of express ourselves or express our love in supposedly a real loving way, not. And the people who are controlling this section now are not making people be virtuous. They're making people into be little devils and demons. And they're actually promoting vice instead of virtue. And even a lot of the mythology, storytelling, folk tales, folklores, you check them out, the old ones, which were all through Europe. The Irish have got beautiful ones, Hungarians as well, through now Transylvania, Erdday, some of those areas in the villages. For the children, they really taught them how to, the philosophy on how to character build, how to be a good person. And they used to, so in traveling, actually it's interesting, they even got a lot of dragon mythology as well through that area. And after Harry Potter, not that I like a movie, I'm just saying the biggest area of Europe with dragon history and mythology is Transylvania, Hungary, the Carpathian Basin. The Carpathian Basin is like absolute center of Europe, center of and there's been so many different tribes of all through this area: the Scythians, Celts, Romans, um, the Goths. What I'm going to do now, yeah, I know some really cool professors. I went to archaeologist professors, and what I'm going to do is because they're not available in English, And this is what blew me off my platform. Um, was when I went to these lectures, I was in awe of the information. It was like I learned all this other stuff, which I'm going to go over. I actually took some notes. I just want to summarize roughly what I'm planning to do. Um, so we used to go to these lectures here in Hungary, but leading up to the lectures, I want to kind of paint a picture of how I got to those lectures and why I changed my mind. And that way I can help people, anybody who's interested in, because there's a big gap in Europe of our friendly Masons who control a lot of our history. And seriously, there's a battle between a lot of professors and on a professional level in universities. Even in Hungary, they have three groups. They have the lefties, conservative, and then the national conservative. And we have a kind of and in the strongest are the lefties and the central conservative. And the other ones have to teach kind of outside of universities in like private, uh, like self-funded. And I attended a lot of them, but a couple of them do still go mainstream, but they have to be very careful how they word because they'll be watched. And there's big debates in archaeology, in history, and a lot of these guys I actually met personally um, on a real personal basis. And so I was able to ask questions which the average person would, a student would actually think they won the lotto. So I got really close to them. So, and I used to have dinner and lunch with them, sit with them, because we used to have these like weekend seminars and conferences. And they were, for some reason, they were fascinated with me because the Australian guy moved out. There's not many people from the West will move back to Hungary. And they were just finding it a bit of a novelty to talk to me, because a lot of them, some of them actually studied, were teaching overseas and they had English students as well. So they were intrigued with an Aussie guy moving to Hungary. So in a way, it was kind of got me my foot into the door a bit. And I got close to him, and I was able all those little intricate questions where you kind of you dwell on. I ended up being able to how do you call it, ask on a and they tell me the stuff which they weren't allowed to tell you in the classroom or the lecture room, because after a period they grew trust, with me, because they're very cautious. And I understand why, because Hungary, when you understand the history of communism and how it works, usually the most friendly person that comes up to you, and the friendliest, is usually the informer. They will they'll act like your best buddy, most friendly, um, and then they'll collect information off you and then report it to the authorities. So that's why a lot of Hungarians in at first are pretty standoffish, especially the older generation, because they got reason not to trust people, because a lot of people were tortured. You got some of these Western guys come here and they go, oh, the Hungarians are always, especially older ones, are like cynical and but they've got damn reason to. We've had a tough history and we're still here, thank God. And we still got a language. The Bulgarians, for example, they had their separate language and then they were Slavitized. And because we were kind of similar tribes in Central Asia that moved all between where the Silk Road is, all above the Caucasus, and it's actually so fascinating, that part of you. It'll give you the answers to so many questions that are not filled by Western teachings, and a lot of Western teachings are totally got the information wrong. They want, as if they want to hide the information from the world, because and not let their information get out, like the Great Parthian Empire, the Sarmatians, even the Amazons. The Amazon, they didn't belong in South America. The Amazons were a tribe of that actually joined together with the to who are they, Scythians, and then they ended up moving into the Carpathian Basins to join the Sarmatia. So it's absolutely mind-boggling, some of the information I've been able to gather. But there's so many lectures that I'm stuck to where to start. So I think I might start with the Huns and the antiquity time, and then, but I'll do separate videos on them. I just want to summarize some of paint a kind of a picture of who I am and why the reasons I have this view. A lot of people, a lot of my friends and family kind of uh, struggle with, not struggle, but maybe kind of curious to why I have these views or why I question some of the stuff they talk about. It's because yeah, I have reason to. There's a lot of conversation of people. They get all the information from movies. They get the history from movies. A lot of documentaries are so twisted with the history. You turn on a history channel now, they've got UFOs, crop circles. They've got these wacky looking guys with the freakiest looking haircuts. Um, and, and a lot of it is not even historically objective information. It's just these idiots getting there trying to totally confuse people about history. And that's very, very dangerous. These guys, tell you what, should be jailed. And I won't say what else, but it's quite disturbing because history is something that should be cherished and passed on from generation to generation. Let's get a drink, Vino, because generation to generation is important because our lives are so short that if you're born, and this is another thing, they've got these stupid new agers. They all live in the now, and they go, oh, it's all within us. It's all within us, and we can find the truth within us, as we grow. And they go on about the child's got the wisdom of the child and all this kind of stuff. The youth, it's just a lot of these Age of Aquarius and New Age groups do teach this, but I want to get onto it a bit later. So it's important for us to learn from not just our forefathers who experienced history. So traditionally they pass the culture and that down to you. So they've lived it. Their generation before have lived it. So they have a better understanding of a vast period of time. And so when you come into life, your parents, if they're not these days, but my grandparents and their generation before, they were able to pass on information that was crucial for your benefit, you to walk, character build you, and understand that because back then Europe was very Christian until the commies from the First World War and their trash came into Europe and totally. Now we have secular states and atheism and all kinds of wacko belief systems. It makes me want to vomit at times, especially knowing now, and they say ignorance is bliss. It isn't. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is bliss for the people that control you. That's why it's very important to learn, question. I think I mentioned it before. Try and question the sources and make sure those people don't belong to any particular political groups or have some bias. And a lot of times, a lot of these days, a lot of them belong to these leftist groups, or as I said before, alt-right groups, and they're part of these neo-pagan groups, and they don't even believe in Christ. They believe in again, it goes back to a lot of the Gnostic, because the Freemasons control both sides, seriously, both sides. So that's why, I don't know, I notice a lot of people with this COVID are really had to start questioning what the hell's going on in the world. And I don't know, I'm just a drop in the ocean. I don't even know how many 10 subscribers. But hopefully, even if I can help one little person or two, that's my to try and kind of guide them or help them to not be fooled by this Luciferian um, tragedy of man, which is happening. um, anyway, look, before I get that, I want to kind of summarize quickly how, again, I got here, because I did before, but I didn't actually get nutted out that well what I studied, and why. As I said, 2000 I got cancer, and then went through all the chemo crap, and after that I ended up even going to, I can't remember, going to a couple of bookstores. Can't remember the name of it. It was on kind of Albert Street. It was a really cool bookstore. So I think it had 3 levels. It had a coffee shop on the bottom. You can spend the whole half a day in there. You know, have a coffee and chill out, go through, sit down. They had these like um, little lounges. You can sit down and flick through the books. They even had a music session. I used to buy the CDs, and they even had a section there where they had like a book reviews and speakers. Like you sit down, and just by pure ass, I went there one day and they had this woman talking about. I think my sister came with me too then, Anika, and they had they're talking about this Polynesian kind of how the Polynesians their belief system. You know, she was from Hawaii and the Polynesian islands, and it was quite interesting just to. And that was pretty much my started because I questioned because of cancer. I kind of started questioning what's going on. You know, what if I would have carked it? You know, so I ended up I bought actually one of the first books that caught my eye actually was this Conversation with God with Donald something Walsh, and I actually never finished it. I don't know, I got into it, and at first it was real difficult. One of those books that just I couldn't connect with, you know. And then there was another one that got my eye was Carl Jung. I got a CD on Carl Jung. It was like a book on CD audio, and I used to listen to it in my car and at home, and it was nice. It was kind of gave you, especially for me, it was all new. So Carl Jung he was a Gnostic as well, and he was more on the psychology side of things, psychiatry actually, and his history was with the other guy, the big psychiatrist. What's his name now? Oh, geez, it doesn't come to my mind. But they were friends in the beginning. He's well known. It just doesn't come to my mind. But anyway, and then they had a fallout. But both of them are got Jewish backgrounds, and they had big influences on the West. This is the turn of the century, early from the 1900s through to the 50s, you know, and this right to the 60s. And Carl Jung had as I said, he talks about archetypes and the dream analysis. It's really interesting learning all that. But again, it's a very little small section of theology, but a very demonic one. And that took me quite a while to wake up to that, you know, because I went to, I even joined a Unitarian group, I think around 2003 or 4. I was there about 2-3 years, and that was like a group that it kind of anybody could join, anybody can have a belief system, and they used to have anybody in the group could get up and talk about what they wanted. Like I think it was a 20 minute or 30-minute talk, and then afterwards you have questions. So yeah, we had people talking about all kinds of topics like different religions. so anything spiritually based. It was really interesting because, again, it gave me kind of an overall picture of the different kinds of belief systems. And again, I was still, that was my first step into this kind of realm of religion or spirituality, and even atheists in the group, you know. There's gays in the group. We actually even went to, we're supporting, like we used to get donations, and then from that money we'd put the money towards charity in some way, and we even went to help lobby for the gays. I remember going to, a few of us went down and we were sort of supporting them. There's a big room full of them, you know. There was about 4 or 5 of us went down from Unitarians, and we tried to, well, we just support them for the human rights, as they say, which I wouldn't be that keen on doing now. But the human rights, so again, they gave some financial support. I think they needed some money for to campaign, you know, lobby. And I remember that as soon as I stood up, this guy jumped over to me and tried to crack onto me. I said straight away, no, I'm straight, you know, just part of Unitarians. So then, in the group, we used to have like movie nights. It was really cool. I actually like, and then after everybody take food. It was on a Saturday, I believe. It used to be on Saturdays every fortnight. And everybody takes something to eat. I used to pop into a bakery shop on the way through and grab some cake or savoury something. And then afterwards we'd sit around talk, you know, after whoever did the presentation. And it was not many of us, about 10, 15 at the most. But sometimes it was only 5 or 10 of us together. And also, when I came to Hungary, I actually went to the World International Unitarian conference in Transylvania, in Cluj, or Kolozsvár. Cluj is a Romanian name, but the original name is Kolozsvár, guys. That's the birthplace of Mátyás, Hunyadi Mátyás. I actually saw it. He's a man, kick-ass. One of the last kings before the Habsburgs took over. And they called him a just king. And he had the biggest army. And he was the biggest contender against the Fuggers and the bankers. And he could have been a European because through the bloodlines of royalty, he could have been the major ruler of Europe. And no kingdom outside, if they wanted to attack other kingdoms, they wouldn't ask, they'd be careful, because they would have to ask for permission of Mátyás, because we had the Black Army, like a bunch of mercenaries, where foreigners used to come because he paid them. And it's another story. That's another lecture. Not a lecture, but it's another thing I'm going to do about King Mátyás. It's very interesting. But the most interesting part about it is that, again, we had the Arambula and the laws that didn't allow the bankers come in. And the whole system was geared to, it actually ran a line biblically. So a lot of our laws were all based on ethical Christian morals and one of a kind in Europe. And as I said before, we were the model kingdom, Regnum Martium. It's another very interesting, because our Saint Istvan, he actually, a patron, he offered the crown to Mother Mary. That was our main, or Nagy Boldog, you know, that's what we call her. And so, and even in heaven, there's a hierarchy. You know, you have Jesus, and then Mother Mary, then the apostles, and like for example, Rome and that have Saint Peter. So hierarchy, Mother Mary is higher. And this is another interesting part of our history. We were one of the first kingdoms to have Mother Mary as our main, and she's not a saint, because a saint is she was never a saint. That's why I don't, even that was an interesting concept. She was Mother Mary is up there because she never sinned at all. Well, the apostles did. A lot of them had pretty dark lives. They killed people, and like before they converted. So they had element of sin in them. But Mother Mary was the cleanest of all. To be able to give birth to Jesus, she had to be the most purest. So having that connection to Mother Mary, and there's so many fascinating locations in Hungary where you have like springs, natural springs and healing. Like I got an example where I had like a conjunctivitis in my eyes, and we went for a tour up. I had it for about a week. And even that morning, I had to rinse my face and I had really awful eyes. And I remember going up there, and it was just went to like a tour of northern Hungary. Um, we're going through all these places, and with a guy talking about lecturing us on about the history, what happened here and there. And I remember it was a really hot day on the bus, and I went down. I said, everybody's getting like water bottles full of this water from this fountain. And I was already hot because I had to walk up to the forest to this location, and I had to drink of water, wash my face like this, wash my eyes, and then after that, it was a beautiful location in the forest. And then I sat down, and there was a beautiful statue. I sat there, and while everybody was up the top, kind of fiddling around, looking around the other area, I went down this other area, garden area. I just sat there and had a prayer, just meditated a bit, with Mother Mary. And afterwards, on the bus, we're going to the next location. And about 20 minutes later, dawned on me, my eyes were just perfect. It was clear, no itch, no uncomfort, no discomfort in my eyes. Wow, I said, this is amazing, Like before that, I was kind of a few days I was had special liquid like solution cleaning my eyes and stuff. I got from the chemist, and then 20 minutes later, gone. It was like it blew my mind, just blew my mind. And there's other ones as well that happened to me. So we've got we're in a remarkable location in Europe, and our forefathers, our heroes, our kings, we're the only. Our kingdom has got the most saints of all royalty in the whole of Europe. We have saint after saint after saint because how they fought for justice. Even Matyas, Saint Laszlo is one of them. So Saint Istvan, Saint Timothy, Saint Margaret, Saint Elizabeth. There's a lot. And there's that's another one I can talk about, the saints of Hungary. That'll be another bit of a lecture. So yeah, but getting back to before I came to Hungary, as I said, I joined that Unitarian group, and I also remember there's always, as I said, after around 2000, I got interested in a little bit more purpose and meaning in life. So I was searching, and I remember there was a movie called What the Bleep in 2004, I think it came out, and that was all about quantum physics and the cosmology of quantum physics and all that. So that caught my interest as well. And you know what was interesting? That was at St. Lucia University. It was advertised. Because I used to rep through that area, and I remember seeing it. I worked for a tobacco company at the time in marketing, and I saw it being advertised at uni, like a billboard, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll go along there. So it was like one evening, 7 o'clock at night or sometime, because I lived at Jindalee at the time, so it was close. And yeah, it was there, and it kind of, it was very thought-provoking at the time, especially if you don't know anything. So it kind of it starts getting the old hamster running around in your head kind of thing. And then later, there was another movie that came out, The Secret, in around 2005 or 6, I remember. And that had a lot of authors there I picked up and started reading as well. And I also remember thinking back now, a lot of those universities, they were very Marxist. Like all their you can see that their main theme because they claim you have to get their young people there. They even when we were marketing in tobacco company, for us to get the brands out, the premium brands, they targeted university students, their main clubs, festivals, where the uni students went, because if they're seen with a particular brand, then that kind of markets to the other crowd. Hey, look, the smart people are smoking Lucky Strike, for example. That's what one of the brands, but it never went well. So anyway, they so they try and market to that, and you can see that they try to do exactly the same thing when it comes to misguiding, indoctrinating them into Marxism. Because another movie that was really big at the time was the Motorcycle Diaries of Che Guevara, that big communist murderer of Latin America, who even what's his name, the Cuban leader couldn't handle. I can't remember his name now. He was shocked by the murders he did. But and then you get all these young students wearing his bloody T-shirt everywhere. It becomes a fashion accessory. It's just disgusting. But they're the kind of movies. They have these communist, a lot of communism in Marxism in universities, which is very disturbing. Very, especially knowing that and knowing that how destructive communism was to the Russian people, to the Chinese people, to Central and Eastern Europeans, you poor Ukrainians. Fucking 20 million people killed. 20 million people killed. And God knows how, I can't remember, 70 or 80 million killed in China. No one talks about that. They always talk about 6 million killed. And even that figure is not accurate if you do your research properly. Again, all that stuff which is being pumped in through the films, and is another very dark, sinister group, which you got to be very careful of, because they're the ones behind the scenes. Have been for many millennia. So they're the ones to watch. They're the ones I found that were very active in the behind the scenes, very active, and dividing us, turning us against each other, dividing a lot of the church. They're behind a lot of dividing the church, sending in infiltrators, these great schisms. So yeah, I noticed that now. But back then, I was anytime I saw Schindler's List, or I nearly cried for poor people. Now I kind of think back and go vomit on it all. Anyway, that's you have to be careful with that topic, because a lot of people don't understand. And me, let's avoid that, because anyway. So another thing I noticed in Australia, which I only noticed later, because as you grow your knowledge about not only history but also religion, is what the different what actually the belief system's about, and theatre is another very crazy area where they got the musical opera. No, it was rock opera, wasn't it? Jesus Christ Superstar, for example. There they have the Kate Sobrano is a bloody Scientologist. Who else was there? I think, but it doesn't really matter. She had a fantastic voice. I loved her voice. But the whole Jesus Christ Superstar is there to, again, twist the whole meaning of Jesus' original teachings and put Judas as the hero in it. Just like when I was studying in Hungary, they have Saint Istvan, the first guy who was crowned by the Saint Crown in the 11th century here in Hungary. You've got to remember, it's something that's tricky when you're talking about centuries. If it say it happened in 1020, you call it 11th century, not the 10th century. So you got to kind of do a quick calculation. It's something that you learn after time. So you see how the arts are so effective in convincing people. Because entertainment will get you all excited and emotional about how good that music is, and then and they'll actually try and get you to change or try and influence you with a historical event, like Jesus' teachings with it. And Jesus Christ Superstar is designed to mock Jesus in there and put Judas as the hero pretty much in it. And we had a similar version here. It was called Saint Istvan Rock Opera, and it was very popular in the 80s. And again, the people that actually, this was the 80s. This is before communism. Because communism was in 89, and 91 is when the Soviets went out. So even there, they hung around for 2 years to make sure that all the I's had dotted, T's across before they're going to pull out of Hungary. So in 89 they were supposed to go out, but 2 years later, 91 is when they fucked off out of the country, and they took a lot of things with them. So, but anyway, prior to that, it goes to show, I think the Jesus Christ the St. Istvan Rock Opera was around the 83, 82, 83, something like that. So it was about 7 years before the collapse of the Iron Curtain in Hungary. But what they had to do was make sure that the pre-World War II, nobody or majority were not St. Istvaners or Catholics. So, but by then, obviously, a lot of people already converted to atheism because communism brainwashes people. But one certain thing they had to do was make Istvan look like a bad guy. So they started a movie and a lot of disinformation about St. Istvan, about this guy called Copain, who's only got one very small documented part of history around written about him, and after that, it's 300 or 400 years later they start writing about him. So that time span, you can see whoever wrote about it was there to again attack Saint Istvan, and then they use that to and put this rock opera together and make a hero out of Copain, and they kind of say we're not going to be Robok, which means slaves, and we're going to fight for. It's like a revolt again, and they try and make Saint Istvan and it look very weak. He's scared of Byzance. He's scared of the German Empire, the Holy Roman Empire at the time. But the trouble is, at the time, Holy Roman Empire was in such a array of chaos with they had battles going on within their kingdom. They were having a lot of issues, and the Byzants were poisoning one another. There was very instability there as well. And Hungary was in the middle, Hungarian kingdom, and we were very powerful at the time. Every battle under Saint Istvan, he didn't lose one battle. For 21 years, every battle he had with either the Germans or the Byzantines, kick ass. And again, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about it because they don't want Hungarians to connect with their past. Yeah, so again, it's very, very dangerous, the arts, musicals, anything historically, which is related in a religious way. You've got to be very careful and see if there's some kind of agenda behind it, and there damn is, Yeah. Let me get a drink. Yeah, so I thought I'd just again talk about it because throughout the day when I was working, today I was working outside. It was a damn hot day, 34 degrees. So I went out shopping. I bought some power tools. I bought this massive grinder, 230 mil, and because I got all this old barn I pulled down, and he's got these big beams. One of them is about 11, 12, 11 were 12 meters long. I just thought, shit, how big is that trunk back there? It was like that wide, that high trunk. And when I took it off, I had to chop it in three to remove it from it. It was really heavy. So I chopped it in three. But what I'm doing is I'm chiseling down the surface of them all, and I bought some lacquer, special lacquer, wood lacquer, and so I chisel it down nicely. I'm lacquering it up, and I rebuild the whole new top. Try and use as much of the old timber, because timber's just become absolutely phenomenal. Everything, all the building materials have gone up 100% since it's stupid manipulating COVID crap, you know. So it's good. At least I recycle all that timber. Some of that timber is good. All I have to do is chisel it down, paint it up, and then I'll restructure the roof. And obviously I have to buy some new stuff, but I'll try and do as much as I can. But it was good. It was good to get outside and do some work. And during while I'm working there, I just come up with all these, what I should have say. Trouble is, a lot of times by the time I get to here, I forget. So not all. I've remembered some of it, what I was going to talk about. But there's so much interesting stuff I can talk about. And what I want to do is a lot of information I want to speak about is the information that I noticed that caught my interest, and I couldn't see anywhere in Australia or West literature, because even now I'm always interested in other parts of Europe's history as well. And what they write about Hungary, the Huns, the Parthians, the different tribes that made up Hungary, Caucasus, is very twisted versions. Even with the languages and the descriptions. So you even have to be very careful with like a lot of the Central Asian, they used to call them Turks, for example, the Turk tribes of Central Asia. But they have nothing to do with the Turks of today who reside in where they are, Turkey, because they were the Ottoman Turks. They came from like the Saudi and the Middle East. I mean, where all that area is. Well, that section up there, where was a different tribes which had nothing in common. Only when we went to battle against them, you know. But the Ottoman Turks didn't get active until later, before they came in. That was around. That was already after Muhammad, and while our history goes back before Christ, even through Central Asia, I tell you what, that area was even the first Christian groups that were there in Armenia and Georgia, the first churches and governing bodies of nations were there before they even came to Rome and Byzance. So the first century, they were already set up. Another really interesting thing I want to talk about is they always talk about the Khazarian Jews, how they converted to Judaism. And that's another area where I went to lectures with hardcore archaeologists who were working through that area, and they claim it's all bullshit. Because around there, they claim that, and they even got good sources backing up that it's bullshit. Because again, they want to hijack our history. They want to write themselves in, they rewrite our history to confuse us as a goy and make us feel, they just rewrite and hijack and confuse everyone, run chaos. Again, if they control our past, they control our future. The reason I wanted to get back to that Khazar thing is because the guy is older guy. He's already around 80 years old now. He had a very interesting, Dr. Cornell, his name is. He had a very interesting history of, he actually went to Iraq to study the Babylonia diggings. He even went to Egypt. He went all through Kazakhstan and around the Caspian Sea, and that's where all the old Hungarian, the Magyars, and were located before that. But Hungarians are made up of a lot of tribes, so that was just part of the tribes. And then later and now another thing I want to talk about is blood covenants, and how that and the whole mythology of or through with the chalice, you know? And even the Arthurian legends come from the Sarmatians, which were the Hungarian Hun tribes again, and they're the ones who settled. They're the ones who settled over in during the when they were fighting those Scottish tribes from the north. The Romans settled them over there, a legion of 5,000 Sarmatians, and they're the ones who took the legend of Arthur, the sword culture there, and even that, the same burial as the Huns, you know, Sarmatia Huns. This is again, and then actually there is some literature in the UK connecting the two, but the mainstream isn't. But again, it's fascinating. It's fascinating the influence Hungarians, the Huns, even Attila I want to talk about because there's again a lot of disinformation about him because a lot of the Rome, a lot of the information historians that use about Attila are biased because back then they didn't like the Huns because the particular person who wrote the history and they found the writings on, he was very biased against the Huns. While there's a lot of sources backing up how diplomatic they were, and just touching on a few, like back then they had the Gauls, the Vandals, and all these, and they sacked Rome 3 or 4 times. I mean, sacked, they burned, flattened it. Huns never. The Huns didn't. They went in there, used diplomacy. Even Byzance, they went to Byzance and they did diplomacy. Instead of flattening Rome or flattening Byzance, they were clever because that way they ended up they paid taxes to the Hun empires. The only time they went to war is when the diplomacy was how they call it collapsed. But they give an opportunity for diplomacy first, you know. Another interesting one is I have cousins who came from Metz, the Kadastas family, because my parents came to Australia while my uncle went to and auntie went to France, and they actually were Metz. And I remember my cousin George telling me about how Metz was flattened by the Huns, you know. And it's so interesting. A few months later, it came up in a lecture about Metz. I went to about how at the time one of the kings of Gaul had a diplomatic fallout with Attila, and he was abusing his princess, and again he was the leader at the time from Metz was a real because everybody thinks just because they come from the West they're all good guys. It's a load of rubbish. A lot of them were just as bad dictators and cruel people to their people. And anyway, so Attila went there and he ended up going there and got rid of that, had a battle there, and they destroyed a lot of the city. And the only thing they left, and the thing they didn't destroy was a St. Istvan or St. Stephen church. And it's still standing in the tower of St. Stephen. And St. Stephen is the first martyr to be crucified by, killed after Jesus. He was the first martyr. And the interesting part, even then the Huns had some connection because of St. Stephen. And that's the only thing they left standing because obviously that was an important monument which they believed in. And the, what was I going to mention? That the St. Stephen, is also, St. Stephen is a very important figure even through all of our history from St. Stephen Crown. And St. Istvan or Stephanus stands for corona or crown. And again, even our borders of Hungary, the crown lands represent the crown, the corona. and the king used to have to go around to certain points and do like a ceremonial. I'm not sure exactly how often, yearly, or I assume it was yearly, and it was like a cleansing of all the border points. Um, so it'll bring us one step closer to heaven, you know, because Hungary, if everybody's collectively living virtuously, and which they out of a lot of Europe, one of the highest, what they claim. That's what I've been studying anyway. It's the border um, will protect within against demonic activity as well. It's interesting. But what I want to, that's another lecture. I've got another lecture I'd like to talk about the crowning. The crown is the most crucial part of Gabriel. Saint Gabriel, or Archangel, not Saint Gabriel. Archangel Gabriel is the one who gifted the Hungarian kingdom with the crown, and all our kings are crowned with this. So he gives them, when they have decisions, it gives them inspiration through God to rule the country, whoever's crowned by it. So it's on the metaphysical side, it's just magical. So, I've got more stuff to share with you guys. But anyway, look, I was going to touch on another point too. Yeah, of the early Christians, there was around 216 AD, there was a very big. A lot of people don't even know this about in the Christian groups. I'm actually quite surprised. But that's why I mean it's so interesting to learn history, because if you don't know religion and history together, it's very confusing trying to understand everything. But during the second century, third century, there was a Manichaeism, which is out before Islam started, was the biggest competitor against Christianity and it was a kind of form of Christianity where this guy Mani, he believed in reincarnation, and he it was a Jewish Christian Gnostic sect. Again, be careful with that Jewish Christian, because Judeo-Christian, you can't have it. Judeo-Christian is something that either you're Christian and the Messiah came and we're converted and believe in the resurrection, and the Jews don't believe in that. They don't believe the Messiah's come yet. So you can't have Judeo-Christianity. It's just Christianity, that's it. And Christianity doesn't start from Jesus, it starts from Adam and Eve. And also if you look at it, I'm trying to think of how, I've never actually heard the words in English, but it's basically when Mother Mary, the second Eve, comes, even God mentions that that's when the coming of Jesus is coming. So the mention of second coming or second Eve, which is Mother Mary, is already mentioned in the book of Genesis. So that's the start of Christianity, not when Jesus was born. That was just progressive. It was and history is progressive, and the mysteries of God are revealed to us depending on different parts of the centuries. So it's like a growing history, a living history, and it changes depending on how we get the messages from God through our prophets, and that's what the Bible's made up of. And the thing is, some parts of the Bible again have been rewritten, so it's another part you got to be careful, because since Age of Enlightenment, a lot of they've tampered with it. Our good friends, they're good Talmudist friends. It's another interesting area to study, guys, the Talmud. But then again, the Talmud again, they know that people look into it, and there's a version they keep secretly from us, and there's one which is deceited. So there you got to be very careful about these Talmudists, Kabbalistic. They're the master of deception. So yeah, but again, getting back to Mani, again, that was a big turning point. We could have all gone that way, and luckily we didn't. And a lot of their teachings are the Masonic. And it's interesting, when I was at this lecture and I was talking about Manichaeism, a lot of the stuff, because when I was first, as I said, I was interested in, before I came to Hungary, I was interested in the Gnostic teachings. I went to lectures there too in Australia. And even the first year I was in Hungary, I attended this Theosophy group, Theosophy, and it was like the White Brotherhood, they call it. It not means people are white. It's more of a, it's all about I just Google it guys if you're that interested. But it's all about, they even include a bit of Saint Germain in it, which is one of our heroes, Rakoczy. They twisted Rakoczy the second. And again, they hijack a lot of history, and they talk about reincarnation and this particular person or this entity continuously coming back and reincarnating in different heroes throughout history, and he is one of them too. But anyway, yeah. So the first year I came here, I met this Croatian girl, Thea. Thea, her name was Tea. Sorry, Tea. Um, and yeah, because I was Googling similar kind of interests, trying to connect with similar stuff I was in Australia. And I even went to a Unitarian conference in Transylvania. Even that was interesting, because that was the first year I was here. So I didn't kind of find out about those Hungarian lectures till about 2007. The first year I was still kind of similar interests I had in Australia. And then later, because I was interested in history, I started attending the like historical lectures at the Hungarian. They had like this World Hungarian Organisation Association. It was like a big building in the city, middle of Budapest, where they used to have different halls and a theatre where you can all these different speakers. But even then, I had to filter out who was good, who was not, because a lot of them were. You had to be cautious. But then it was all new to me too, so everything was all new. So it took me a few years to wrap my head around who's good, who's bad. And then in 2011, I opened up I want to start my own business. I opened up a coffee shop, t-shirt shop, clothing shop, and I wanted to have it like for like a more of a patriotic Christian theme, so for people to meet, talk. I even had a radio station there, lecturers coming in. It went for about a year, and it was just too tough. A lot of people didn't have money. And I had different groups come down there, a lot of different groups of the patriotic groups, and that's where I actually discovered who was who. Because it was funny in a coffee shop. There's like a coffee shop, wine, wine, coffee, palinka, beer. I even had this Kulash beer. Um, so. And then I had my range of clothes from t-shirts, cargo pants, hoodies. Gee, I think this is one of the t-shirts here. Get. So, and I had anyway. So long story short, the business wasn't necessarily that successful, but I wanted a place where people can come down and socialise. Instead of going to all these like meaningless places, at least there they can meet, have conversation. I even had like a little library. People can pick a book and have a read. I had like a St. Crown radio going in the background, where they had like supporting the patriotic rock bands and music of Hungary, and also had like a live radio program there, like once a fortnight. They used to call it Sim City, and they talk about politics around Hungary. But most one was Dr. Vodka Tibor. I had him there talking about historical events, and he used to bring a good crowd in. So, but that was good because that's where I filtered. I got to know the different groups, and even though the business went down the tube, I ended up learning so much about who's on Kids on the Block. Got really streetwise. So, in that respect, it was good, and a lot of again. There was a group called Jobbik who were like supposedly right wing, but again they were set up. They were set up to as a decoy by the, like, again, to trap anybody who's patriotic. And again, that was a socialist group who were behind the scenes of it, funding it. So guys, be very careful. A lot of these groups that you think are right wing or patriotic are not. They're there to trap you. Even the Proud Boys in the US, they're run by an Israeli group. They're behind the scenes. Um, and even a lot of alt-right groups here, oh, they have all their, they go to a lot of, when they have their conferences and seminars, they're all in the Masonic halls of Europe, different parts of Europe. People just don't get it, you know. And even then, if you know a lot about how Masonry works and their ideology and belief system, bang, you can already notice it, and then the alarm bells go off, you know. So step away, keep them from arm's length distance. These guys. So anyway, guys, look, I've been talking for over an hour now, so I think I'll wrap it up, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll continue talking because I think, well, I hope there is, but you know what they've done on my YouTube channel? They blocked my comments, YouTube, so I don't even get any feedback. So I don't know. I don't know whether that's going to be permanent or what. But hopefully it won't. So I'm going to put this up on Facebook. So if anybody wants to put a bit of feedback, please do. Hopefully you enjoyed it because I don't know. I'm trying to get in a rhythm of. I'm starting to get in a rhythm of talking. But first I was a bit not camera shy. Just don't know what to talk about, and you get bogged down because But I was thinking during the day that there's so much stuff I could share with people, especially a lot of people who might have heard of Hungarian people in history in the past who grew up in overseas. You know, I can enlighten them about who they were, what's their real background, and the people who are English who are interested in not just like another aspect of history which they've never been exposed to. So I hope I can help a whole genre of people, you know, to some enlightening and historical fun time, especially this time of chaos. I want to build the bridge back to the normality, the bridge back to the old order, and that's where we keep our sanity, because what's happening in the world now, no one knows what direction to go to, and I feel so sorry for the next generation. I really do, and even I've still got a few years to go. I even don't know what's around the corner, but it's not straightforward. What you can see, the media and the bankers and the corporations are hell bent on screwing us over. So anyway, Odjona Ishtan, you estate. I'm going to go to bed soon. I've still got a bit of time, and God bless. Keep the faith, and yeah, and be patient. Love each other, and but don't love each other. Don't love the bad things. Love the good things. That way, you don't give anything bad energy. Love the good things. Be able to distinguish it. So that's bye for now. Take care, guys.